Bushra Gohar is a Pakistani politician and rights activist, a former member of Pakistan's parliament, and is deeply involved in the Pashtun liberation movement of her country. I met her in Dushanbe in late 2023 when we were both attending a reunion of Afghan leaders and their supporters. She and I had a wide-ranging conversation about the historic typecasting of Pashtun people as warriors, the misuse of Pashtun tradition and Islam to justify creeping Talibanization across the Afghanistan-Pakistan tribal belt, and what she calls the crimes against humanity that led to the Taliban's return to power. She delivers strong opinions with a gentle voice. Have a listen. Thank you for your time. Would you mind introducing yourself, what you do, where you're from, why it is you're here talking about women's affairs?
Okay. My name is Bushra Gohar. Bushra means good news, and Gohar is precious stone, basically. So I come from a district in Pashtunwa, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. It's called Sawabi, from a very small village called Chanda. I'm a former member of Parliament of Pakistan, and I've worked all my life on women's rights, human rights, and human development. Yeah. So I'm in Dushanbe. I've been a part of the Herat Security Dialogue, and I'm here because I would like to see peace in the region and women getting their rights. We don't have to fight all our lives for our basic rights. So I stand in solidarity with the women of Afghanistan and the girls of Afghanistan.
But the situation for women and girls in Afghanistan has become terrible under the Taliban. It wasn't great before the Taliban came back, and in the part of Pakistan where you're from, it's still a very tribalised society, and you have spoken very interestingly about tribal conditions, traditions, and the romanticisation of the Pashtun tribes, which helps entrench the treatment of women and the idealisation of the treatment of women as tradition. Can you explain that?
Well, you see, a plan, I think it's quite planned to keep Pashtuns back, because many societies were tribal and they've come out of the tribal systems. Whereas for the Pashtuns, we're tribal, and then the Talibanization, Mullahism, all that has been injected to keep us back. And this is also because of the regional games that go on, and Pashtuns have basically been used as cannon fodder in this, on both sides of the Durand line. And you see, when you keep a society back, in the 21st century also, if you're glorifying a tribal system, which is basically anti-women, in my opinion, it's patriarchal. So you actually, the impact on women is the worst then, you see. And so I'm constantly questioned about it also, that you're a Pashtun woman and you do this, you do that. And I keep saying, the Pashtuns have to change. Culture is never still. Culture changes over the years. And if it is changing for the men, it should also change for the women. And I've questioned many of the taboos and the tribal ways of things. Now, I come from a district where women are quite strong, and we've come out of the systems, but we're still quite behind. I'm not saying that we've made it yet, but at least we've got a high education, which is a basic right for all boys and girls. And now that I see in Afghanistan, I mean, even in Pakhtunkhwa, if you go towards the south, if you go to the tribal districts, you'll find education ratio is quite low. And it's seen as a privilege, a big thing. I feel that, the state is responsible for education for all, and they have the right. The girls also, but their schools have to be made operational. You can't just say, well, you see, because this society is tribal and they don't let their girls go to school, which I don't believe at all, because I think the Pashtuns, if allowed, I mean, we've had the most strongest peace movement against the British in Pakhtunkhwa. So if we were a violent, ignorant lot, how would we have had this huge peaceful movement against the British? And Bacha Khan's movement actually tried to modernize Pashtunwali, democratize it, and include women as equal members. He would say that Pashtuns cannot develop if women are not a part of that process, an active part of the process. So I feel that, this trying to stereotype the Pashtuns as, not allowing women. If you just read Bacha Khan's Khudai Khidmatgar movement and the kind of reforms he tried to add, he was accepted by the Pashtuns when he went to the villages. He's also revered in Afghanistan and in India as well. So to say that we don't want development or that we are against it and that we just like to take up guns and fight, that's not true. Today, the resistance is coming from the Pashtuns to the Talibanization or to the Taliban. Main resistance is from the Pashtuns because Pashtuns are the target and the victims of this Talibanization or the Taliban project. And we have many strong women on both sides who are speaking up also. To say that, I have been going to Afghanistan since the early 2000s, and I've seen how Afghanistan has been rebuilt. And I've seen very strong women in very key positions, making a difference. Many girls going to school. So, if you allow a country, a nation, some stability, they'll develop and they'll come out of the issues. But if you keep disrupting and destabilizing and creating chaos, it's not going to happen then. We'll constantly go back. We'll take a step forward and then several steps back. So that is the problem that, like I said, for Pashtuns, whether we want to stay in a black hole, we know that our policies, our state policies are such that they want to keep us in a black hole. But we have to resist it and keep saying that, enough is enough. We are not going to become cannon fodder for another proxy war.
Well, can you go back a little further to the subjugation of the tribes? You said that this had been injected into the understanding of the tribal reality. Where does that originally come from? And is the subjugation of women? When I look at what's happening in Afghanistan, or even the way women are, persistently undermined in Western societies and cultures and economies as well, it's about power, and it's about underpinning male power. Is that what it is? It's about in the Pashtun areas of Pakistan as well, and who is it that wins that power? Who stands to gain?
But basically, women are not even considered human in these tribal societies. So you live a subhuman, you're objectified, you're a possession of somebody. These days, my biggest thing, I keep questioning when I see someone announcing something about a family woman, they'll not take that family woman's name or show her face or anything. So even in death, she's either somebody's mother or sister or daughter, but not an individual. You see, so basically, that is the control. You're not even human. You're a possession. You're possessed. You're a, and that's how the honor and dignity also of the family is linked to a woman. The other day, I asked something about why, on social media, and a Pashtun guy immediately said that's because in our society, we think women are, we protect and respect women's dignity, and I said, why don't boys have dignity? Why is it okay for their names to be taken and their faces to be shown? And he said, no, they have dignity, but we consider women as queens, but not as humans, So when you keep reinforcing this, women don't want to be queens or anything. They just want to be treated as humans, as equals. And that thing that we need to keep pushing, that we are as human as you are.
But it's the subjugation, it's the justification of very severe repression and dehumanisation of women by saying this is how we respect them. Yes. But it's not respect. No, it's a conflation of control
with
control. Respect.
And that's what I told him. I said, this is control, basically. You want to control whatever, the woman's life, mobility, everything, decision, everything is controlled. And we see that then also perpetuated through our language, through our education system, through even at decision-making levels. Like I even gave an example of how international communities, when international donors, when they come, and how they reinforce all these things, so they will also say that this project will work in respecting the cultural norms, within the confines of the. So I keep saying culture. I mean, if I look at my family, many family members before me, very early on, were not educated. But that has changed, you see. So things change. Culture is never, and it's not still for women and dynamic for men, you see. And like Basha Khan said, if we want Pashtuns to move forward to the modern world, the developed world, we have to make sure that women are a part of this whole process. Whether it's the political process, the social process, we have to have women there. Now, we have a political party. I've been a part of a political process all my life. I was a member of a Pashtun nationalist, Awami National Party for a very long time. Bacha Khan's philosophy is followed. And so we tried to bring more women into the political process. But that was also a constant struggle. You see, you have to keep asking. And now we've formed this new political party, and my main concern and challenge is to get our young Pashtun men, who are mostly from tribal areas, and the tribal mindset is really quite strong, to accept women's role in the political process and to encourage and to create that space for them. It's a very difficult task. Constantly you're questioning. Women, in fact, yesterday I was meeting with some Afghans also, and they were talking about some of the processes that have started outside Afghanistan and inside Afghanistan. And I asked them if they were including women in the processes. So women are capable of making their own decisions. Give them the space. They're not taking anyone's space. They just want their own space. That's it.
Well, what we heard for a long time in Afghanistan during the presence of the international community and the war against the Taliban was that there can be no peace or development economically without women's participation.
Yeah.
And now we see that women are completely excluded in Afghanistan from any social, economic, political participation at all. And I think this is coming at a time when women's rights in Western countries, the United States is a good example, are also being pushed back in the name of religion or politics, left or right. What happens in Afghanistan is not going to stay there, and I think there has already been a bleed over into Pakistan. Am I conflating that? I mean, Imran Khan is on the record as saying, as you said before, they don't send their girls to school anyway. So what's the big deal?
Well, you see, I think I've always called Imran Khan Taliban Khan, and he has always been pro-Taliban. And he was installed and handed our province to push us back, actually. And I think it was also in preparation of handing over or the Taliban's occupation in Afghanistan. So to have Taliban Khan's government in Pakhtunkhwa and in the center helped speed up the takeover of Taliban, takeover of Afghanistan, Kabul by the Taliban. We feared that, you see, if the Taliban, Kabul is given to the Taliban, there's going to be a backlash. We've already suffered enough because of this whole war on terror. So we've seen the effects, but if you look at the Doha deal, the US gave legitimacy. US and allies gave legitimacy to a group of people who've got blood of the Afghans on their hands and de-recognized the Republic of Afghanistan. Now, what do you expect from this kind of a situation? The women were already warning just before the Doha deal also. They were saying, we are not going to be pushed back. Do not compromise on our rights. But there were people who were constantly saying that, these are new Taliban
2.0,
yes,
we can work with them
and
they're just village boys.
Yes. And misguided, we'll get
we
it
can
all
work
right.
with
Yes.
them. Yeah.
So Imran Khan gave a very irresponsible statement by saying, this is the Pashtun way of not letting girls. So justified this whole ban on girls and women. But what he didn't say was that just before the Taliban came in, there was thousands of girls going to school.
Millions,
you see. So, and there were many Pashtuns going to school. In fact, many parents, because the schools were open, many parents wanted their children. They were all Pashtun women, even parents, even from very backward areas. There were women in very high offices. So I know them. Many participated in the elections as well. So to say that it is our culture, and that many times he said that the Taliban represent the Pashtun, this is an insult to a nation that has suffered at the hands of this whole proxy war, and the Taliban are proxies basically. They do not represent the Pashtuns. Otherwise, why would, and I've asked many a times that if they represent us, why are they attacking the Pashtuns? They're attacking our schools, they're blowing up our mosques, our hujras, they're destroying us. So how are they representing us? They don't speak for us. They don't. On both sides, if you see the destruction, It is mainly in the Pashtun areas. So how can these, terrorists represent anyone? Basically, they don't represent anyone. They don't represent the Afghans. And if if they really represented the people of Afghan, they would go to the people and get their support, not look around outside for legitimacy.
Yeah.
You see, that's the.
It's also a cynical use of religion, isn't it? Not just tradition, but religion as well, to shore up political power. I think Imran Khan did that really quite skillfully. He's not the only one, of course, but the most
everyone.
recent.
Yes, everyone tries to. That is why I think in politics we should not use religion. We work under the Constitution. Religion is a personal, private business. The state can't dictate to people what. And there are many interpretations. So it isn't the state's business to be dictating what interpretation will be followed and whose interpretation will be followed. Similarly, there are many Muslims who follow the religion. They don't need the Taliban to tell them what their religion is and what their beliefs are. But even then, basically, Muslims, predominantly Muslims on both sides of the Durand line, know that the religion's foundation is in education, and human rights, hukuk al-ibad, and education. So how can a group of guns-wielding people stand up and say that, girls will not get education? Who are they to tell anyone? So using religion for power and control, that has been used here militarily by, using gun. There's no compulsion in Islam, yet they use guns and they terrorize people. So basically, I think it isn't about religion. It is about power, control, patriarchy, and a new proxy war, a cycle of violence that is being started here. And that is why, people say that Afghans have to sort it out, but Afghans didn't really push themselves into this mess. There are many others responsible also for what is happening or what has happened in Afghanistan. For me, it is a painful thing to know that several generations have been displaced so many times. I met a young girl about in her early 30s, and she said, "This is my third displacement." Okay? Now, if the US and the international community and their allies and the contractors in the region believed that the Taliban meant peace, why would they then say that we will take all our workers out of Afghanistan? Because they knew that it was not for peace that they were bringing or letting them take over. Otherwise, why would you take them out, send aircrafts to take people out? If their deal was such a good deal and no one was threatened and it was... So they have to be held accountable as well. You can't just burden the Afghans who are already have suffered so much. They get a breather and then there's a new proxy war planned, a great game, and then they're pushed again. So the countries in the region and the international community will have to be held accountable for what has happened in Afghanistan, and the occupation of Afghanistan has been backed by the international community.
And there are no consequences.
Yes, that's...
The United Nations appointed, I don't even know what the office is called, a special representative for the issues of women in Afghanistan, which has made no difference that I can discern to the condition of women. The Taliban just seem to be able to push back and double down whenever they are told that they have to treat women with some humanity, nothing seems to work. Things are just getting worse, and the list of atrocities against all Afghans, but women in particular, is also getting longer. Why do you think that is?
Well, the UN needs reform. I think the UN is the most, has become so irrelevant now. And when I see, Western women coming and meeting with Taliban, there seems to be a romantic view of being pictured with the Taliban and things like that. You see, they're not naive when they.
The Taliban are not naive?
No, I think the international community is not naive. They've handed it over with a plan in mind.
Well, indeed, but you say, you point out that people go and visit the Taliban and they do selfies with the Talibs.
Yes.
So it's like they're rubbing everybody's nose in the aftermath.
And can you imagine those who've lost loved ones when they see these pictures and statements that we must now work with these terrorists? I mean, they can't even imagine. So the consequences have to be there. And I feel that more people have to ask for accountability of these, the US, the allied countries, and we need a truth commission on this. I find it is, just dumping everything on the Afghans and say, now you sort it out.
Yeah.
They are not the ones who've pushed their country into this mess. So it has to be, somebody has to be held accountable for what is happening. And I believe that many of us, as, who would like peace in the region, who would like women to have a life that they choose, and the freedoms that the Constitution allows them, that, we stand together and start pushing for accountability.
But do you think the creation of the office within the UN of a woman representative to try and sort out women's issues in Afghanistan is just a way of putting it in a box and putting it to one side? We've dealt with that now. It seems quite insulting to me.
I mean, I like I said, UN is irrelevant as far.
Okay.
If UN could do something, this is an emergency. When girls can't go to school, 2 years, more than 2 years of their life.
Plus a year before that, under COVID.
Yes. So why isn't the UN concerned about this? What is it that they need this office to record information? And are these reports, the UN reports, they catch dust? There's nothing that the UN does about it. I mean, in fact, the Secretary General is only issuing statements. I mean, is that all that the Secretary General is supposed to be doing?
What do you think could be done?
Yeah, and who are they asking? You see, who are they asking?
Yeah.
We have had many people tell us that, you see, the Taliban are now a reality and they need to be engaged with. I personally feel that they have to be held accountable first for what they have done to the people. And then it is the people of Afghanistan who will decide how they want and what they want. Okay? So we can engage with the people. We can stand with the people. But these terrorists who've been imposed on Afghanistan must not be given legitimacy or recognition. They should be held accountable, in my opinion. Yes. Excuse me.
No worries. Yep.
I can never find my phone. Okay, this is this guy. I'll turn it off.
What form do you think that holding to account should take?
I mean, there needs to be a truth commission. Then all the signatories of the Doha deal need to be tried in the International Court of Justice. I mean, when I look at the Doha deal, it's quite criminal, and it's also, asking the Republic of Afghanistan, or de-recognizing it also, bypassing it, and then asking it to do this without even consulting, like the way 5,000 terrorists were released and things like that. So I think that could be the starting point also. And then, of course, if a truth commission is formed with credible people, there would be a report on what led to all this and who's responsible. And I think, as far as I'm concerned, everyone who signed that document should be tried in the court of law. It's a crime against humanity, what has happened in Afghanistan.
I don't hear very many voices amongst feminist groups in the West raised for Afghan women. Before the fall of the Republic, billions of dollars was spent on projects for the benefit of Afghan women, not just getting them into school, but political awareness and, social participation, civil society, all sorts of things. And scholarships for study abroad, an awful lot of money. I mean, one project alone called Promote was worth $500 million. And after big fanfare, I don't think I heard very much about that at all. But there was a lot of involvement by foreign and Western and particularly American feminist and women's rights groups. And I don't see those voices in the space now. I don't hear them screaming about what's happening to women in Afghanistan as being, and the women in Afghanistan being representative of women everywhere. Why do you think that is?
Well, I'm not really following the Western feminist movements, but I think Afghanistan, by and large, has been abandoned by the West, by the international. They think that they're no longer responsible for Afghanistan. And I know what you're saying about the projects that came in and how people benefited from it, because we've seen it in Pakistan also, that when the donors come, half of it goes out. You don't really get as much,
or even
on the
stays
ground.
at home.
Home. Yes. Yeah. So these donor-driven developments actually are bubbles that you create, and they don't really have that effect also. Of course, I've seen change since I've been going to Afghanistan early 2000. I also went to do a consulting work in Afghanistan very early when the Taliban government was removed the first time. And I was quite amazed that, this project that we were designing for education, this was early 2000, that we couldn't meet the people. Now, we couldn't meet the people. We could meet certain people because of security risks to the Americans who were there or the international consultants. And we were designing something for the Afghans without actually going to different areas. I mean, even the visits were quite superficial. So I remember one day I sat with the guest house staff. I said, can you sit with me and tell me what is happening? I mean, so development work generally, and I've been part of this whole process, so I know how superficial it is, and half of it, there's a lot of bleeding going on. I've seen Afghans rebuilt on their own. I saw the destroyed Kabul, drove around, and then I've seen it rebuilt. But most of it has been done by ordinary Afghans. The international community, some might have done good work also. I'm not undermining anyone. But I think that, unless you have a long-term view of development with people's engagement, throwing money in is going to go to waste. And then sitting there and blaming the Afghans for being corrupt, when you actually inject that kind of a system,
corruption.
Yes. So you insult them also. Things. So I feel that in future we have to see. But I have always found project-driven development has never worked. It won't work again also. And the commitments have to come through. Even in Pakistan, since I've been in parliament also, I've always said, these development projects have to be debated. Whatever agreements with the international should be debated in the parliament so that the public knows. These, even if they're bilateral, they have to be first presented to the parliament so that the parliament knows what kind of commitments are being made with the international donors. Many times the public, because through the parliament, at least the public representatives, the people find out what kind of decisions are being made. So this whole process needs to be looked at, because many a times, where I was chair of the Women's Development Committee in the parliament, and there was a huge USAID project. But each time I would summon them to come and explain this project to me, the USAID would not come to explain, and the partner organizations would come, and we couldn't make sense of what kind of work that they were trying to do. So it is important that, whatever money comes into that the public representatives take ownership of them.
But BG, what you're talking about is democracy and accountability.
Yes.
Both of which are becoming more and more idealised as we progress.
Well, we have to respect the people's will, and whether we like it or not. I know that democracies are generally dysfunctional, especially in our side of but also quite dysfunctional in the Western countries as well. But the rights of the people have to be protected. Public representatives, in Pakistan, the past decade, Parliament has been discredited, undermined. Politicians have been undermined for decades now. So I feel that political leaders have to assert themselves. They have to sit together and put a stop to this. But they're looking elsewhere. As long as if you're looking at left, right, and center, and not to the parliament and the constitution for your decisions and political process, you're always going to be stuck, and you'll be looking at outside forces to come and assert you or impose you or give you a seat, or and not look at the people for a vote. In Pakistan, I don't think we've had a single election that has been free and fair.
Well, you're about to have another election.
Yes.
And so I guess it would be fair to say that since Imran Khan was deposed, if you like, or lost his premiership through a vote of no confidence, it's been an extremely politically and economically unstable time for Pakistan.
Yes. Well, Imran Khan's imposition has destabilized Pakistan. The whole manipulation of 2018 elections destabilized Pakistan, and in fact undermined the constitution and the parliament. And Pashtunkhwa has been the most affected by this whole thing, because we are now concerned about a new wave of Talibanization and violence. So we can't move forward unless 2018 stock taking is taken, of the 2018 elections. And the coming elections, we are looking at the Election Commission to ensure free and fair election, and also give level playing field to all. There is talk about manipulation again, selection that certain parties and have, talks have already taken place. We reject it. We feel that this shouldn't be happening, and let the people decide. And we feel that even though I'm terribly against Imran Khan's politics and his party, but I feel his party must also get a level playing field. It isn't for Pindi to decide who will participate in elections and who will not. The Election Commission has to be strengthened. That has been our position. We need a constitutional amendment soon after the election to do away with the caretaker setup, because this was inserted in the constitution for manipulation, because it provides space for the establishment to put their puppets in and get certain decisions taken.
And gerrymander.
Yes. So we do not want, the caretaker setup has given more space to the unelected bureaucrats to manipulate the the voting process and everything. So I think that Pakistan needs political, but it needs political will. All political parties have to sit before the elections and agree on certain minimums to ensure that we have free and fair elections in February. Indeed, to have elections, we must have elections. There should be no delay in the elections, but no one should be kept out also from the process.
Well, I wish you the best for preserving and developing democracy in Pakistan, because you deserve it.
I hope so, yes. We'll continue to struggle. It's not an easy struggle. Ours is we know it's an uphill struggle. And I think we'll continue for the rights of the people, for peace in our region, and then the added thing that women must be a part of this whole process.
Well, Bushra Gohar, thank you very much for your time today. I feel really privileged to have had this conversation with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes.
That was Bushra Gohar, a Pakistan rights activist. She talked about Pashtun tribal politics, why she calls former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan Taliban Khan, and how Pashtuns have long resisted violence despite the cliches that have been built around them. I hope you enjoyed our discussion. That's all for now. I'm Lynne O'Donnell. Bye-bye.